one song that I am not only sure but certain came to us from heaven. Because our beloved John Melcher, from our music man from the other side, gave this to Virginia, basically in a dream, and she had it within...
No, he gave it to... I got it in a dream.
You got it in a
dream.
dream.
I woke up and I played it.
And he played it and then taught it to us, and we sang it once before. So I asked for this song to be the song for this day.
Catholic mystic, wedgie lover, ski instructor. Take it away, Bill.
Well prepared. What's your hallmark?
20 minutes.
The first minute is the best. Good morning. In preparation for this talk, today is one of those days. I apologize for this morning. I thought we were doing the other song first. I did ask for those songs. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Bill O'Donnell. And to further check, I grabbed my passport this morning and was thinking of Steve, who's somewhere in Liberia or someplace, and we saw him last week before he left. And so in my passport is my birth certificate. So my birth certificate reads John William O'Donnell, born at 5:53 p.m. on June 12th, 1947 in Vallejo, California. Although here in New Mexico they wouldn't know where that is because it's not pronounced correctly. It should be Vallejo, named after Generalissimo Mariano Guadalupe Vallejo, who was the last Governor General of Alta California. So I'm a Californian from the San Francisco Bay Area. I think it's important just to kind of get the background of the person speaking or get a better framework for where I'm coming from. When I first arrived at that time, I joined two older brothers who became probably my greatest teachers growing up in some way or another. Although, Shelley, your song today was so perfect. How many times have you come to Celebration and heard a speaker, and the songs and the meditation and the readings were all perfectly set up for you? And it was just really amazing. I didn't realize what was going to happen. Because being a public speaker is something that I do not feel skilled at doing. It may appear that way to you, but I don't feel it. And I haven't had the experience. And I'll tell you why. Because my oldest brother, Dick, was very kind to me in a brotherly way, as was my big brother, Christopher, was. His idea of support is a wedgie. Thank you, Christopher. I've never felt that way myself, nor have I been inclined to give him, but from him, I know that to be affection. Because my older brother, I remember one time I was all excited about a story I wanted to tell at the dinner table, because then two more came and I became that perennial middle child. And my older brother piped up, I was all excited to tell a story. He says, hey, we don't want to hear that. Jim and I have already gone through that, we don't want to hear it. At the time, my dad was spacing out, doing his soup, and there was no one there to support it. And I remember closing down at that point, because I was better now to be seen and unheard. And what I really love about Celebration, what I really want to start with, is gratitude and thankfulness, because there I do fall short. So I want to start with that. I want to thank all of you here today. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a celebrationist. I am a celebrationist. I feel it in my heart of hearts. So no matter what else you think of me or you know of me, I am a celebrationist here. I say that with true sincerity. I actually came here before Celebration started. My first religious service in Santa Fe was with the founder of Celebration. Carol Bell Knight was the Church of Religious Science minister at the Old Women's Club, where we've been many times. And I went to that service, and I went to that service until I was called in another direction. Diane DeLorean helped me form this up. Where's Diane? Is she there? Hi, Diane.
Hi, Bill.
She helped me decide what to say, because here in the back of the Gazette it says, call for speakers. Would you enjoy sharing your path in a 20-minute talk, or know someone who would? And then here we are. We are especially interested in the stories of individual journeys of self-knowledge and spiritual unfoldment. So my life has been one of gaining self-knowledge and spiritual unfoldment. When Jeff asked me about the Trappist, I knew a bit about it. I was a monk at one time at the monastery in Pecos. I was a Benedictine monk. I can take no credit for it whatsoever. I just drove by. I'd never seen a monastery, and there it was. And it was on St. Patrick's Day, 1983. So as I reach in for the first, you often see me wearing this cross. This is a Celtic cross that I wear often to honor my ancestors from Ireland and elsewhere. My mother's side, they were Scottish, English, German, but that Celtic influence runs deep in me, and I thank them especially. I feel like I'm living my life in some ways in honor of my ancestors, because they had it very tough, and they brought me to where I am. My generation is on cruise control compared to those who immigrated and who are now here and successful. But, so I was raised Catholic, Roman Catholic. I was baptized on July 27, 1947. I can't tell you what that's like, because I was an infant and don't remember. I've seen them, but they tell me that then you are then made a Christian. You are given some formal relationship with that whole, what I'll call cosmology of spirituality. And many of you, how many here were baptized? Wow, a lot of them. Okay. So probably none of you were adult baptized. Anybody here adult? A couple. Max, thank you. Great. Max cracked me up, and I went to find out exactly who he was, and he says, okay, what's your claim to fame? What are you known for? Who do you say that I am? I guess if I die tomorrow, and I want to acknowledge those who have, for instance, all of you know John Melcher, who just passed away recently. also had left recently was Alana Joan Carr, was a close friend of mine, in a strange sort of way, but others have gone before us. Where are they? Well, I've come to believe in the existence of the soul. I don't believe that Bill O'Donnell was ever here before, but I have reason to believe that my soul is eternal because I have had past life recall. And I've also explored that region. Some of you may have remembered or heard about the series In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy. Remember that was a famous show that aired for years in the 60s? They did a show on reincarnation. And there was a woman there by the name of Helen Wambach, who was a psychologist, and she specialized in past life regression. Anybody remember or know her or know about her? So I had a session with her, and then I had psychic readings and the rest of it. For about 10 years, I went to see a woman by the name of Vivian Snyder, who was a very intuitive person. And then later I was at a psychic fair in San Francisco, and had a reading by a guy, and it was very good. And I said, hey, where'd you learn to do that? And he said, I went to school. And I had just graduated from law school, and I said, hey, I know how to go to school. So I found that school and went. It was a spin-off of the Berkeley Psychic Institute called Heart Song. How many know Heart Song? I see Kate and Virginia, the rest. And this was heaven. I mean, I went to a lot of schools, you know, I have an AA, a BS, and a JD, and then I got to the school of choice, which was Heart Song. No books, all experimental, all experiential. Learning how to use the gifts that we have that lie dormant in us. I later came to read in Scripture, in the book that St. Paul wrote to the Corinthians. If you look at it, chapter 12 talks about all these spiritual gifts, one after another, that they're there, waiting. And then it leads you into the direction of chapter 13, the very famous chapter on love. Love is kind, love is patient, all those. And the greatest, then it goes love, faith, hope, and charity are the last, and the greatest of these is love. So, but the first line of chapter 14 says, pursue love, make that your great quest, but then desire spiritual gifts to help your fellows. And so that was my quest at that time, to learn how to use these energies that are within us, that are existence in all of us. So we're all mystics, every one of us. If you wake up in the middle of the night, you don't feel fully awake, do you? That's that mystical time between the dawn and the dark, and then at dusk when the sun's going down, or those first rays of light. I consider myself, as I told this to David Raymer, a voice crying in the wilderness before his winter solstice talk next week. Also, remember, my first name is John. Nobody bothered to tell me, back to the middle kid, until I was about 11 or 12. My first name is what? Nobody bothered to mention. You're kidding. He says, well, why don't you call me Johnny or Jack or something? Well, we wanted to call you Billy. Okay, fine. So I resonate now with both of them. It's quite a surprise. It's like a long-lost twin brother. John William. In this spiritual journey that I mentioned, I basically didn't get it. I remember my first day as an altar boy was Christmas. I was in about the 5th grade. How old are you then? 11, 12, something like that. It's 6 a.m. So it's still dark out. Christmas Mass on celebration. And my dad told me that was his first Mass. Now for those of you who've been altar boys, any altar boys here? Oh my God. It doesn't surprise me now. Last week I couldn't believe it. Here's Diane DeLauren and Christopher explaining the dogma of the Immaculate Conception. I went, wow. These guys, it runs deep. It runs deep. Anyhow, there's something about it. What happens at a Mass for me now as a metaphysician is I believe in what they tell me in the sense that a portal opens up. These priests, I've been to a number of ordinations, and I invite you all to come. There'll be one this June. If you want to come with me, and I'll set you up for it. And then watch what happens when these guys are prepared for years, and then the bishop comes and lays hands on them. And then the words are, you're transformed forever in the spirit of Melchizedek. How many know who Melchizedek was in the Old Testament? We've got clappers here. This is for Melchizedek. Rock and roll. Okay. What happens is something happens. It's like that baptism. Something happens when they baptize you. You're changed in some spiritual way. You're not the outer person, but that soul being that keeps going. Whenever I look at my childhood pictures, I realize, my God, that's me. But there's nothing in me from then now except for the soul. We know from science that every cell in our body changes. Every cell. Who are we? What keeps animating us? Who's beating our heart? Why is our heart beating? Why is that blood pumping through our system? Who is expanding the lungs? Who's breathing for us when we're asleep? What force does that? The only answer I have for me is that concept of the soul. So we're all soul beings. You guys heard that song this morning. Where did that song come from? John's body is gone. But John's not gone, is he? John's right here with us, now. Even Jesus said, the kingdom of God is at hand. It's that close. The veil is that thin. And most of us here are closer to the veil than we are to the womb, aren't we? Real close. Real close. It's good to remember. It's good to remember. Because the only antidote for fear that I know of is what? Love. And the highest commandment in Judaism and Christianity is to love. Love with your whole heart, love with your whole soul, and love with your whole mind. Isn't it? How many Jews here that have a mezuzah on their doorpost? Anybody? Well, how many Christians have one on their doorpost? I do. Kathy Flynn does, okay. Because it just says that. It just reiterates what you can look in any Bible. It's Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4 through 10. That same essence is right there. Why? Because remember it. So I say these words to share with you, not to talk about my story so much, but to be of some value to my community's life. In Catholic land, you're not asked to speak, I mean, other than Shay, peace be with you at one time. That's why I like coming here. This is what I call play church, because we can play, and we can have fun, and we can sing, and we can enjoy each other, and we can celebrate. We can join together and honor all past. Even if that's just ignoring them, to actually saying, yeah, okay? That's our form. It's a benign form of love, but it's acknowledging them. It's acknowledging them. So, how much time we have, David?
5.5.
Okay, great. I'll wrap this up by saying, last week I invited you to look at the YouTube channel. Anybody take a look at it? Okay, perfect. That's really perfect. Oriented, okay. There's a ton of stuff that I've been doing. Who do I say that I am? I wore this outfit because this is typically what I wear. I have a TV show. I've been doing community television here in Santa Fe for 25 years. And my friend Casey Ryan, who's there capturing all this behind the, we'll get a chance to have him stand up as a visitor later, but he put a lot of these shows up on YouTube. So now they can be seen and looked at. I've interviewed a lot of wonderful people who have some things to say, much more than I do, at least I think so. So I recommend it. Jeff brought up the Trappists, and he brought up Thomas Merton. I did a show about Thomas Merton, and it's the highest seen of all the shows I've done. I don't know how many hits, maybe 25,000 or something like that, because of Thomas Merton, who is the most famous monk of our time. More people have read his stuff than anyone in history. That's what I was told. And guess where I learned about Thomas Merton and read it for myself? In Rhonda's library, there it was. The Seven-Story Mountain, I think, was his first book, and it's an award winner. And it's an interesting story, because he was a kind of a playboy rounder before he found his way to become who Jeff described. And you can see that half-hour interview I did with a Protestant minister named Bob Patterson, who gave a talk on Thomas Merton. So, without much further ado, I'll leave it with that. You can find out more about me. There are interviews about me and my life, not complete, but enough there. And so here's what I tell friends and family. If you can't sleep some night, Google me up on YouTube and watch the wrong show and I'll put you right to sleep. That's my promise. Okay, in a few minutes I'll stand for a couple of questions. If anybody has any burning questions, I'll try to answer them in the few minutes we have left. Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Tell us the ski bum version of
Okay.
theology.
The other prop is my employee ID. I'm in my pre-bucket list phase. Pre-bucket list phase. I'm afraid my bucket will have a hole in it if I wait until it's that time. So about 10 years ago, I became a ski instructor at Ski Santa Fe. And we just started a week ago yesterday. We're still waiting for the real snow for the upper mountain. But I'm glad you asked, because I'm there really for spiritual reasons. I can't get any physically higher than riding that last chairlift at 12,000 feet, and there's nothing more above you than just the sky, and you turn to your right and you can see Colorado. And you can see straight ahead and you see the whole La Bajada plain. You turn to the left and there's Santa Fe right below you at 7,000 feet, and now you're at 12. And then when you get on those skis and you start heading down, you are dancing with angels. And Jesus walked on water, but we're going faster than that. We're flying on frozen water. And this new equipment is a gift from God. It's so amazing. It really does things that you can't do when I was a kid. So that's my story. And I do spiritual direction on the chair if you want it. Otherwise, just enjoy the view. Anybody else? Yeah, Max.
Can you talk about how mystical, or would you say that when you were at the monastery, is there a sense of mysticism there that's talked about or expressed? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll make it brief. Let me give my experience first. I'm sorry?
Past or current?
Initial. Because it's still relevant. When I was at the monastery for the first time, I was just back in the church a short while and didn't know what I was doing back in the church. Because I'd gone hither and yon. I mean, I studied Buddhism in college. As soon as I went away to school, man, I stopped going to Mass because I was only going out of obedience to my father. And that was a great experience. Then I started studying Buddhism. I even read Dianetics, different things. I later got into Hinduism. I was in an ashram in Oakland. That came after psychic school, or before psychic school. And then so driving by, I found this monastery. So my first time there, I'm just meditating. I was a meditator. I took TM and learned from my guru, who was Swami Muktananda. And so I'm just meditating. And it was pretty strong. Went on 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes, and all of a sudden, half the energy disappeared. So I opened my eyes, and the sacristan took the Eucharist that was exposed and had put it in the tabernacle. And I could feel it from the peanut gallery. So I knew that a consecrated host had energy, and it was emanating. That was my experience. So that was my first mystical experience there. Then later, this is an important question, didn't realize it till now, the psychic stuff that I was doing in Berkeley, the psychic readings I was doing, guess what? They were doing the same thing at the monastery. Charismatic prayer ministry was exactly the same as doing a psychic reading and spiritual healing in Berkeley. The only difference was you knew your cosmology. You knew where you were. You had a safety net above you. People that I went to psychic school, one gal committed suicide. It's pretty dangerous out there. When you come out of the body, astrally project or something, or you're dealing with entities right there, that grounding thing we did earlier today, it really was the first thing we learned in psychic school. So that was pretty mystical. And then there were healings that took place there. I've seen them. More on that later. Any other questions? I've gone over. Thank you for your time, attention. Happy Thursday.
will be our eyes and watch us where we go and help us to be wise in times when we don't know. Let this be our prayer when we lose our way. Lead us to a place, guide us with your grace, to a place where we'll be safe. I pray we'll find your light and hold it in our hearts. When stars go out each night, remind us where you are. Let this be our prayer when shadows fill our day. Lead us to a place, guide us with your grace, to a place where we'll be safe. I pray we'll find your light and hold it in our hearts. When stars go out each night, remind us where you are. Let this be our prayer when shadows fill our day. Lead us to a place, guide us with your grace, to a place where we'll be safe. Lead us to a place, guide us with your grace, to a place where we'll be
In our lives, we, moment to moment, we make little stands, little statements of who we are on this earth, what this incarnation is about. And sometimes we stop and we think about what our whole incarnation is about. What is the big picture? What did we stand for? We like to sing this song. Bill asked for it, and we're honoring him with singing When It's All Been Said and Done on page 69.
Did I live my life for you?
treasures will be nothing. Only what I've done for love's rewards will stand the test of time. Lord, your mercy is so great that you look beyond our weakness and find purest gold in mighty clay, turning sinners into saints. I will always sing your praise here on earth and ever after. You shall be there, is my true home, when it's all is said. You're my life when life is wrong. When it's all been said and done, there is just one thing that matters. Did I do my best to live for you? Did I live my life for you? Yes, I live my life for you. Guide us with your grace to a place